Let's just assume I'll give it this is not a great example. It's just the first one that comes to my mind. You go back to, nobody's run a 4-minute mile. Nobody's broken the 4-minute mile. And if Roger Bannister had dream after dream of breaking the 4-minute mile, do we have reason to believe that that would have impacted his physiology and belief system in the way that it did when he actually broke the 4-minute mile, and all of a sudden breaking the 4-minute mile became a standard occurrence? In other words, the rule set got broken in the real world, and that clearly demonstrated a path to progress. Do we have evidence that had that rule set been broken in a dream state, it could have had a similar effect for the first individual?
The best evidence I have is the incredible work of my colleague at Stanford, Aaliyah Crum. I'd love to put you guys in touch and just be a fly on the wall for that conversation. That's what's great about podcasting. We can all be flies on the wall for it. She's worked on these mindset effects or belief effects. These are different than placebo effects. And the short answer is yes. There are a million examples, so I'll give my 3 favorite examples. You give somebody a milkshake, you tell them it's a low-calorie milkshake. You measure things like their insulin, their glucose response, levels of satiety, levels of ghrelin, et cetera. You give another group a milkshake, you tell them it's a high-calorie shake. You take all the same measures.
You'll see different responses.
Vastly different responses. You give hotel workers a little tutorial on the fact that, cleaning hotel rooms is boring, but it burns calories and can lower blood pressure, help you lose weight. They lose on average between 8 and 11 pounds in the following 3 or 4 weeks. Okay. You don't say anything to hotel workers about all the benefits of their work and the exercise that it includes. You just tell them that it involves a lot of movement, et cetera, et cetera. No consequence. There's clearly a mindset effect. And my favorite example would be the one related to stress, which is you tell people all the negative impacts of stress on memory and well-being and immune system, or you tell people also true data on the performance enhancing effects of stress, sharpening of memory capacity, reaction time reduced, which is also true. And you see exactly what people believe and what they're told and what they believe. You can't lie to yourself, but what you believe about a given practice strongly regulates the physiology. Now, this is interesting to me in terms of the 4-minute mile or other things. Like you tell people that the burn of lactate, the maybe even the lack of sleep that they had the night before reflects a training adaptation as opposed to overreaching and overtraining. You're going to see very different outcomes. In fact, Allie's been cueing me to the idea that a lot of this sleep tracking stuff that you tell people you didn't have a good night's sleep, they feel like shit the next day. You tell them they had a great night's sleep, independent of their sleep physiology. And listen, I am as much a proponent of sleep as the core of mental and physical performance as Matt or anyone else, you included. But let's be honest, what you believe about what you've been told has an immense impact on your physiology. And I use this to explain some of the battles around nutrition, where you hear like these dweebs over here are saying this online and these dweebs and goons over here. And it's kind of silly after a while. Clearly there's a distribution where facts rule and physiology rules. The laws of thermodynamics are intact, but then these belief effects can account for according to her, anywhere from about 8 to 20% of the effects of anything like a food or a behavior. She actually set out in her thesis at Harvard to study the effects of exercise, and her advisor said to her, "I think all the effects of exercise are placebo." And it was kind of a prompt to go actually look at that. And she thought, well, that's crazy. Allie's a former D1 athlete. She's also a trained clinical psychologist, runs a lab at Stanford. She's one of these superhumans. But she said, well, that's crazy. No, exercise changes blood pressure by way of a number of different physiological mechanisms. But she went and tested this idea that it's all placebo. In fact, that there's a lot that is placebo. So mindset effects are real in terms of physiology. Now, does that allow people to break mental barriers? Well, for certain things like engineering, like sending rockets up to Mars, clearly there's an engineering feat that has to adapt to the physical world. There's nothing obvious about that. I can't just will it into existence. But in terms of what the limits are on human performance and what the limits are in terms of creative endeavors, well, as far as we know, that's infinite.